Welcome to today's Explainer. We are jumping right into a fascinating, frankly hilarious deep dive into a phenomenon we've probably all witnessed, or maybe even experienced ourselves. We're meticulously dissecting the anatomy of a gym fail. Right off the bat, our source material hits us with that loud, unmistakable sound of heavy metallic weights dropping. It instantly sets the mood and establishes our core premise for today. We are analyzing the high-stakes, super intense dynamic of a fitness trainer delivering the brutal, unfiltered truth to a client.
The source establishes the hook immediately with this bold statement, when your gym trainer tells the brutal truth, complete, of course, with the crying emoji. Now, we're going to treat this whole interaction as a highly serious psychological case study. What exactly happens when the unstoppable force of fitness accountability meets the immovable object of a client's incredibly flimsy excuses?
Okay, let's dive into this. To really understand this dynamic, we first need to look closely at our two subjects. On the left, we have Chad. The source describes him as super buff, highly aggressive, and of course, he's clutching a protein shaker. He represents peak physical discipline, with absolutely zero tolerance for nonsense. And then, on the right, we have Tim. Tim is out of shape and physically exhausted after a mere 2 push-ups. The juxtaposition here is just extreme, and it perfectly sets the baseline for the conflict we're about to analyze.
Scene 1. The workout.
And this brilliantly illustrates the severity of Tim's physical baseline. 2, that is the exact weight, in kilograms, of the dumbbell Tim was lifting before ending up lying totally flat on the gym floor, breathing heavily. 2 kilograms. It's an incredibly minimal load, yet it has completely incapacitated our subject. It highlights this dramatic, immediately apparent gap between the trainer's expectations and the client's actual reality.
From the floor, Tim asks this genuinely naive question. "Coach, I can't feel my legs. Am I building muscle?" This right here is a critical data point for us. It shows Tim's fundamental misunderstanding of biomechanics and how the body adapts. He actually associates the extreme fatigue of lifting a tiny 2-kilogram weight with massive muscle growth. And honestly, this sets up the perfect runway for Chad's ruthless reality check. So the crucial point is Chad's response. He doesn't sugarcoat it at all. He just tells him directly, "No, Tim, you're just building an excuse to eat a whole pizza tonight." We really need to view this as a deadpan psychological assessment. Chad is identifying a classic compensatory behavior loop. Basically, Tim puts in minimal physical effort, artificially inflates his own sense of accomplishment, and then intends to use that fake achievement to justify a massive caloric surplus later in the evening.
Let's move to and see how this builds. Scene 2. The diet check.
As we document this next phase, Tim gets super defensive and makes a really bold assertion. He claims, "But I followed the diet. I only drank water today." Now, on paper, claiming to only consume water sounds like the ultimate, maybe even overly extreme form of dietary adherence. But it's actually a highly misleading claim designed purely to deflect accountability and appease his aggressive trainer. However, modern trainers have modern investigative tools. Chad immediately contrasts Tim's verbal claim with hard, photographic evidence pulled directly from Tim's own Instagram story. The reality? A water-based chocolate milkshake and 3 donuts. The semantic gymnastics here are truly fascinating. Tim seemingly believes that because the chocolate milkshake utilized a water base, it somehow categorizes as simply drinking water. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how we can visually break down this absolute nutritional disaster. We have one portion representing the water-based chocolate milkshake and the rest representing what Tim desperately defends as his emotional support donuts. Yes, emotional support donuts. Our source material literally notes the sound of crickets chirping in the background at this exact moment, perfectly underscoring the sheer absurdity of presenting this to a professional trainer as a legitimate health strategy. Scene 3. The final blow. Chad doesn't even dwell on the absurdity of the emotional support donuts. He pivots instantly, just stating, "All right, time for your final exercise." This signals a massive shift. He's no longer analyzing or debating. He is prescribing. He's setting up the ultimate, culminating test of endurance for a client who is already failing spectacularly.
And the prescription is absolutely staggering. 100. Chad demands 100 push-ups. Remember our baseline data from the beginning of this explainer? Tim was visibly exhausted after exactly 2 push-ups. Imposing a volume of 100 reps on an already depleted, fundamentally deconditioned client is mathematically and physiologically impossible here.
Tim recognizes this impending doom immediately. His response is a literal life or death panic. He screams, 100! If I do that, I will literally die. He isn't just complaining about muscle soreness anymore. He is expressing a genuine, primal fear of catastrophic biological failure. The tension between these two men has reached its absolute peak.
Chad's exact reaction to his client's sheer terror is chillingly pragmatic. Second one, Chad simply smiles. Second two, he calmly checks his watch. Second three, he delivers the ultimate punchline, perfect. That means I can finally take my lunch break, get to work. Chad has completely bypassed empathy and moves straight to logistical efficiency. If Tim expires attempting the impossible, well, Chad just gets to eat lunch early. It is a masterful, brutal display of trainer apathy.
Our source material concludes this incredible interaction with a final, highly stylized audio-visual sequence. We get this dramatic heavy bass drop, and Tim literally starts crying in an exaggerated animation style. The psychological break is complete. The trainer's absolute, unyielding reality has entirely crushed the client's wall of excuses.
Which brings us to the core takeaway of this entire analysis. Are you actually building muscle, or just building your next excuse? This perfectly summarizes the brutal, hilarious dynamic between Chad and Tim, but it also forces us to look in the mirror. When we analyze our own goals, are we putting in the actual work, or are we just doing enough to justify an emotional support donut? It's a tough question, but answering it honestly might just be the most important workout you do all day. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. I'll catch you next time.